Sådär, välkomna tillbaka till fortsättningen här på vår bolagsdag här på Erik Penser Bank. Nu välkomnar vi Inwido med vd Henrik Hjalmarsson som finns med på länk här. Välkommen Henrik och varsågod.
Tack så mycket. Thank you very much. I'll do this in English as we might have some foreign viewers as well. My name is Henrik Hjalmarsson. I am the president and CEO of Inwido, and I'll take you through a brief introduction to us, a few words on our performance this year, some comments on the past year's performance, as well as an insight into our strategy and our sustainability work. Next page, please, page 2. So Inwido is the largest window group in Europe and a leading door manufacturer. We are a clear market leader in the Nordic region with a strong presence in the UK and Ireland, as well as what I would call an emerging position in Germany and Poland. Net sales of 6.7 billion SEK last 12 months ending Q3 this year, with an operating EBITDA margin the same period of 10.6%. We've got roughly 4,200 employees in 12 countries in Northern Europe, and we market and sell all the spectacular brands that you see on the bottom part of this slide. Next page, please, page 3. Inwido, and just to give you a bit of a background to Inwido and the history, Inwido was effectively built by 50 plus acquisitions over the past 20 and some odd years. Started off quite modestly in Sweden with the merger of two window businesses, then expanding first in Sweden and then in the latter part of the 00s in the Nordics, also venturing out into Europe, followed by a period of consolidation, gaining some more synergies and focusing on synergies across the group. Then going through the IPO process, which was September 2014, continuing the expansion in Europe, and very importantly then launching the e-commerce growth plan. And then from the 1st of January last year, launching the new, or rather the updated governance model for us and the updated operating model with a more decentralized and accountable organization, increasing the customer focus as well as preparing us for the next step in the Inwido journey. Next page, please, page 4. A few words on our development, first 9 months this year. Sales has grown organically by 2% to almost 4.9 billion SEK. Operating EBITDA has strengthened to almost 500 million SEK, up from 435 last year, which then means that the margin has strengthened 1.2 percentage points to 10.2%. Operating cash flow has continued to be good, and I'm going to come back to that, at 872 million SEK. And all in all, this means that the net debt versus operating EBITDA is down to 1.2, excluding IFRS 16, versus 2.5 a year ago. If we look at the business performance, e-commerce growth has been strong, particularly in quarters 2 and 3, growing 42% organically in Q3. We've done a good job capitalizing in general on robust consumer markets, particularly I would say in Denmark, but in generally overall. And we've continued our work with cost efficiency and running a lean organization with good cost management and cost control overall. Next page, please, page 5. A few words then on COVID-19 and the obvious impact that it's had on us and everybody else. We very early set 3 principles that has guided us from the start in Q1. The first was obviously to protect our own employees, to protect them from the virus and keep them safe and healthy. Number 2 was to contribute to limiting the spread of the virus across society and across the local communities where we're active. And the third very important one was to keep our businesses running, as our businesses are typically pillars in their local communities and important for keeping economies alive locally. Overall, the impact, both operationally and financially net-wise, has been limited to date. We have obviously seen negative impact. We saw government-mandated shutdowns in the UK and partly Ireland in Q2. We've seen Finnish consumer sales, which typically happens in-home, being impacted as people have been more reluctant to take visitors into their homes. We've also seen higher sick leave in general, but particularly in Business Area North, impacting our efficiencies in the factories. But on the other hand, we've had some slight positive impact. We believe that part of the uplift that we've seen in e-commerce has been explained by the home renovation trend part of it. So the net impact overall limited. We do think that the decentralized operating model we have and the way we run the business has helped us to tackle this in a good way. And as most businesses would say, although impact in the short term has been limited, the long-term effects of COVID-19 remain hard to predict. Next page, please, page 6. A few words then on the past few years of performance. As I mentioned earlier, we launched a new operating model and a new way of running the business 1st of January last year, where we aspired to prepare for an accelerated growth, but also with 3 clear objectives. The first one was to improve our cash flow, to reduce our leverage, with a step-changed working capital focus, among other things. The second thing was to improve our underlying efficiency and profitability, hence to strengthen the margin. Both through continued operations investments to make sure that we optimize conversion cost, but also continuing our work to create a leaner Inwido and a more efficient Inwido with lower overall overhead cost. And the third one was to turn the business back towards organic growth, to leverage our continued investments in e-commerce and capitalize ongoing on the strong segment positions that we have. Next page, please, page 7. So if we then look at how have we done now almost 2 years into that journey, well, I'm happy to say that we have improved our cash flows and we've improved our margins and latterly also seen organic growth come through. As you can see in this chart in the blue bars, operating cash flow has been strong in the past 6-7 quarters, considerably stronger than the years before, improving the overall cash position of the business. We've also seen 6 consecutive quarters of strengthened EBITDA margin, as you can see in the goldish line. And as you can see at the bottom of the slide, in the past couple of quarters, we've also seen organic growth come through again in the business. So overall, despite we obviously see bigger potential long-term in the business, but we're happy with the progress we've made in the past couple of years. Next page, please, page 8. We run this business based on 4 cornerstones, or if you will, 4 strategic beliefs that we believe drive sustainable and profitable growth and that are principles for how we organize and develop the business. The first one is that we believe that a decentralized structure drives customer and results focus, increases accountability, and continues to develop better and stronger propositions to the customers in the markets. Number 2 is that we believe that a focus on the consumer-driven market drives profitable growth. We know that the consumer segments in general in our markets are more attractive in terms of building and maintaining strong positions, but also offers more attractive margins. Number 3 is we see sustainable growth driven through acquisitions on top of the organic growth we want to achieve. And number 4, we see that synergies across the group in areas such as technology, purchasing and leadership drive structural improvement of the businesses within the Inwido group. Next page, please, page 9. Before I go into a few words on our strategy, I just wanted to briefly explain the way we look at our market landscape. Overall, the window market in Europe, and as it is in the Nordics, is a very fragmented market. And the complex channel structure that we have allows for strong niche positions with attractive returns. So we assess and develop strategies for our business units in 3 dimensions. The first one then being geography. So obviously the countries we're active in, like Finland and Sweden and Denmark, etc. But actually in some cases this might also be sub-geographies which have slightly different traits from other geographies within the same country. The second dimension is product type or product position. Partly then in terms of the value ladder, so whether it's a value proposition or mainstream or premium, but also obviously whether it's a window, a door or a sliding door. And then lastly, in terms of the segment, we typically look at our markets in terms of 5 segments. It's the installers, which are then different types of carpenters with varying degrees of focus, either fully or partially on window changes. The second one is direct to consumer and almost then exclusively with installation. Third one is retail, which could be both builder merchants to professionals, but also DIY retailers such as Bauhaus and Hornbach, etc. It's e-commerce sales, obviously, which is an important part for us. And lastly, industry sales, which could be to construction companies or to prefab house manufacturers. And it's important to understand that each separate combination of these dimensions, so segment, product type and geography, is defined by its own set of competitive forces and also has its own level of attractiveness and returns, and can also be used to build barriers around for long-term competitive advantage. Next page, please. Page 10. So now, over the past years, we've built a stronger platform to start from with better cash flows, strengthened margins, and emerging organic growth. Now it's time to leverage that base to take the next step towards long-term profitable growth, both then maintaining the profit and growth momentum that we have, but also to drive M&A more actively. And we see three critical elements to the next step of this journey. It's to invest for growth, make sure that we run diligent execution to improve our margins, and value-creating M&A. Next page, please. Page 11. If we start with the first one then, investing for growth, it's really making sure that we dedicate and prioritize the cash that we generate to get the maximum ROI, but also to utilize the opportunities which we have. So we will continue to invest in e-commerce, in amongst other things marketing, but also supply chain expansion and entry into new geographies where it's relevant, because we think that we have a big growth potential in e-commerce and it offers attractive returns. The second one is to continually secure assortment relevance, both exploiting changing preferences, but also very importantly now that we stand in front of a big sustainability opportunity as well as challenge, to make sure that we continually increase energy efficiency in our products to remain leader in that respect. And thirdly, it's to continue to invest in cementing and protecting the strong segment positions that we have that I talked about when I described our market landscape. So protecting the strong positions when we have, particularly when we're threatened, but also continue to develop unique customer propositions. Next page, please. Page 12. If we look then at the second priority, it is diligent execution. If anything, in this industry, you really get rewarded for strong execution and strong delivery on your customers' expectations. So running lean businesses with high reliability and resilience really wins in the market. So a few priorities here. First one is then reliability. One of the single most important KPIs of the businesses that we operate is OTIF, on time, in full, or delivery reliability, if you will. So continued strong focus on this for all the strong businesses that we have will be critical going forward. But it's also about developing the businesses in terms of customer service processes and obviously maintaining leading product quality in the industry. Secondly, to protect our competitiveness is to make sure that we have a strong drive on efficiency. Lean businesses with the right cost level drives market relevance as well as margin potential in this industry. So continuing to build on best practices in production flows and continue with automation investments, maintain a continued lean organizations where we scrutinize overheads and indirect cost, and also executing the margin improvement activities and initiatives that we've identified for Business Area North. And the third one is resilience, because a resilient and in a sense stable business drives continuous development, but it's also rewarded by the customer in the industry. So continuing to evaluate and refine our supply chain from the customer backwards, investing in leadership and organization for continuity, but also very importantly, and I'm going to come back to this, step changing our sustainability efforts for the long term. Next page, please, page 30. And then the third one is value creating M&A. So we see here a substantial growth opportunity in the long run for the business. As I mentioned earlier, we've done a good piece of work in the past couple of years, strengthening our balance sheet, creating some financial flexibility, and we're now well positioned to take new steps to continue the 50 plus acquisitions that we've made and created value from historically and repeat that in the future. We have identified 8 key criteria in our M&A model to make sure that we drive value creating acquisitions, and we do that based on some key considerations. So we validate that the target meet these criteria to deliver value from it. We drive swift focus on sourcing synergies after acquisitions and make sure that we have robust integration and business progression plans. Very importantly then focusing on management continuity. We deliver business improvements by applying our operating model, and I'll come back to that. And very importantly, when we make acquisitions, we have a strong cash generation focus and effectively allow the acquired business to amortize the EV consideration that we've spent to acquire them to make room for new M&A. As we mentioned previously, we do have a considerable long list of attractive targets, and we're obviously pursuing those continuously. If you look at the 8 key criteria, and we start from the top and go clockwise. We look at businesses within windows and doors because that's the heritage and what we know and what we come from. We primarily focus on profitable companies. We prefer to take a business from good to great rather than to do a turnaround. And we've also demonstrated that we do that well historically. We look for strong positions that we can strengthen further in the three dimensions that I talked about earlier. We are focused on the renovation segment because we believe over time that offers more attractive returns. Management opportunity is a key parameter that we look at, either that we acquire businesses that have strong incumbent management or that we have management opportunities internally that we can utilize in new acquired businesses. We obviously look for synergies, and most importantly then is purchasing, but also in technology and leadership, for example. We look primarily in the geographies, the Nordics, DACH, so the German-speaking, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, the UK and Poland. And we also look at acquiring some incremental capabilities to add on top of what we offer to customers today. Next page, please, page 14. And one part of the foundation for all of this is the virtuous cycle that we apply to drive shareholder value over time, or as we half-jokingly sometimes call it, Inwido's Wheel of Fortune. So these are 5 elements that are the basis to make sure that we deliver long-term cost-efficient customer value as well as employee value and hence shareholder value. And we've demonstrated over time that we can apply this and apply it on new businesses when we acquire them. So looking clockwise from the top right-hand side, as I mentioned, we drive efficiency synergies from, amongst other things, sourcing and technology that allows us to make the businesses we acquire more efficient and then improving their margins. Number 2 is we firmly believe in a decentralized accountability model with performance focus, with business focus, and local leadership and drive. Local accountability focused on local results. Number 3 is the one area where we as a business are quite dogmatic. We have developed a good performance management and KPI structure that we've shown over time drives the right behaviors in our type of businesses and that delivers value from window businesses over time. Number 4 is to focus on capital efficiency and capital allocation. And lastly then, number 5, to take that cash and maximize the ROI on that with M&A as well as investing in the businesses for continued growth and efficiency. Next page, please, page 15. A few words then on sustainability. I think we have a number of sustainability trends that impact us, and overall our view is that we stand to gain from these trends and the increasing sustainability focus in general. So we see one trend that we clearly see is higher energy efficiency for lower carbon footprint. In general, increasing focus on reducing energy consumption, but also businesses and governments that make bold climate commitments and customers that overall are increasingly keen to contribute to the climate challenge. This is an opportunity for us to sell new and energy efficient windows to the market. We see circular thinking for enduring business models, so generally increasing awareness around circularity, but also, for example, increasing focus on biodiversity. Which could impact and do impact for us, for example, sourcing choices. And here is an opportunity because we believe that we build a stronger and better circular model than competition in the market. And then it's increasing responsibility as a third trend for society and employees, local versus global, for example, businesses' roles in local communities, but also newer ways of working, etc. And here, with our global footprint, but local decentralized or European footprint with local decentralized governance model allows us to be relevant. Next page, please, page 16. Overall, we are guided by the Inwido Sustainability Compass. And our motto is that we give more than we take because sustainable business drives sustainable value. This has 3 pillars. To be an environmental friend because we need natural resources to do responsible business. So, for example, reducing our climate impact or choosing wood from sustainable sources. The second one is to be a good place to work because empowered colleagues make a difference. So, obviously about offering safe and healthy workplaces for our employees, but also continue developing leadership to improve and drive all aspects of the people in our workplaces. And number 3, to be a responsible business because aligning with society creates more opportunities A part of this is obviously about being compliant in everything we do, but it's also about investing in local communities where we're active to make them thriving and secure long-term access to good employees. Next page, please, page 17. We've also launched our long-term ambition in terms of carbon footprint, which is that we will reduce our carbon dioxide emissions with 50% by 2030 and be carbon neutral by 2050. We recently made this commitment and we continuously monitor and follow up and report this on a regular basis. Next page, please, page 18. So, a few concluding remarks. Following the launch of the new operating model, as I mentioned, we've gradually improved the business in terms of cash flows, in terms of margins, and latterly also organic growth, and created a stable base for the future and for the next steps. With the strong segment positions that we have and the proven ability to capitalize on and grow the consumer market, we're well prepared now to pursue our growth ambitions. And we will continue our efforts and investments to secure long-term sustainable growth with investments in, for example, e-commerce, generating organic as well as M&A-driven growth. And lastly, but absolutely not least, sustainability is at the heart of our business model. Supplying high-quality windows and doors with high energy efficiency to improve the energy efficiency of buildings is what we do every day. Next page, please. So with that, thank you very much, and I open up for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Henrik, for this presentation. We have a few minutes left, so I would like to ask a few questions. First of all, given the considerable size of Inwido today and the big geographical presence and a strong market position, looking forward, is there any, would you consider perhaps integrating downwards in the value chain when it comes to sourcing and so on? And how do you view your the potential from centralized sourcing? Is that an issue going forward, or a potential going forward?
Yeah, so one of the few areas, and I mentioned that briefly, the synergies we achieve within sourcing. One of the few areas in our decentralized model, which is actually centralized, is sourcing. So all the core categories and roughly 3/4 of the total spend is actually centralized in core category teams, where we buy as a group rather than as individual business units. So in, for example, glass, hinges and fittings, aluminum for aluminum clad windows, and wood for wood windows, we make those sourcing decisions jointly. And in some cases, we have then also made decisions to actually integrate backwards in the value chain. So, for example, we operate 2 aluminum paint businesses because we saw an opportunity to secure long-term cost-efficient aluminum painting in an environment where aluminum-clad windows is growing rapidly, just as an example.
How has the sourcing markets been this year? You have obviously shown very strong growth and very healthy business. Have you experienced any sort of bottlenecks and so on when it comes to sourcing this year?
So in general, I mean, from a supply chain perspective, it has been a bit of a turbulent year, and mainly actually due to the close downs earlier this spring. It's been a bit turbulent from a logistics perspective. But also the fact that inventories were depleted as some suppliers to the window and door industry in Europe actually shut down, whereas most window and door plants kept running. So inventories were depleted and overall demand has been decent throughout the year, so inventories haven't really been built up. So some bottlenecks, nothing with any material impact, I would say, on the customer side, although we've had stockouts that have temporarily impacted our businesses, but nothing material. I think in terms of overall material demand and material inflation, we are starting to see some categories where partially then through an increased overall demand from the construction sector, but also I think sustainability drive have seen some inflationary pressure, wood being actually one of them where we see some it's moderate, but we're starting to see some inflationary pressure.
Also, this year has been exceptional in many ways, but one way that you have one opportunity that you have pursued has been in the part of e-commerce when it comes to the sales. What's the potential of that, and does that sort of eat away at other sales channels, and how big can e-commerce become for Inwido going forward?
Yeah, so in terms of cannibalization from other channels, I would say that it's quite modest, actually. I mean, there is probably some, but we have to remember that our margins in e-commerce is above group average. So actually, if anything, that could end up being a positive margin mix cannibalization from our perspective. I think in terms of the potential, I mean, we've obviously grown very rapidly. E-commerce was in quarter 3 13% of group sales and has become quite a big chunk of, quite a big business unit in itself for us. But we do see still even on a Nordic level, where the Nordics is quite mature in terms of e-commerce in this sector, it's still quite small and only a few % of the total window market. So we see considerable growth potential in the Nordics to grow our e-commerce proposition. We have to remember that we're the absolute leader by far in this sector. And secondly, we see some interesting opportunities in other geographies in Europe. I mean, we've only quite recently actually launched our e-commerce proposition in Germany, which has already made it on the map of some of competition in Germany, and that is growing rapidly. So we're one of few players with a fully integrated value chain in terms of e-commerce, all the way from sourcing and production of the window all the way out to distribution and in connection with the end consumer. And we've shown over time that we've built a system that works really well also when we go into new geographies.
Okay, and with that, I would like to thank you for participating today, Henrik, for this presentation and for taking the time. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.